Hi everyone, welcome back. This is Mandy, and I almost didn't share this video with you because this turns out really super weird. Anyway, I wanted to practice the cloud pour, and I'm reusing a record from a failed one. While I'm getting some clouds now, this is Flamingo Feather from Colourarte. While I'm getting some clouds now, my composition's been pretty whack lately. This is Hot Tamale from Colourarte. So these Colourarte pigments I had mixed up as bloom paints for a really long time, and they weren't, however I mixed them, they were too glossy. This is Paynes Gray from Creative Inspirations. So the primary elements were too glossy and they weren't performing well in blooms, so I just basically thinned them down a little bit, and I figured I'd use them for cloud pour practice. That is a little bit of what's left from Metallic Cobalt Blue from Artist Loft. And unfortunately, my paint consistencies were not all the same. So this is the recipe. I'll put the recipe in the description box, but this is the recipe using satin house paint instead of the satin enamels. So all I did, I used Molly's Dream Cloud recipe, and I just swapped house paint where she uses the satin enamels. Something seemed a little off about my consistency, and the colors and all that just turned out super weird. This is a custom purple I made. So in some ways I'm trying to use up paint and try new things. So I'm sharing it with you because I'm pretty committed to sharing weird fails and all that stuff. But anyway, it's strange. So starting with the Flamingo Feather, the Flamingo Feather was mixed up quite thin. I probably need to leave it open and let it thicken up a little bit. The Hot Tamale was a little bit thicker, so I'm putting them down. And then here's the thing I've noticed with Creative Inspirations. Creative Inspirations is really cell reactive, but it doesn't necessarily seem super cloud reactive. So I think part of what I'm struggling with is paint brands. So like I know Liquitex is gonna react well to the cloud mix. That's the Creative Inspirations. I know that Soho paints react well, but I'm not sure about this one yet. So that could be part of the problem. So there's my cloud mix. I also didn't use very much cloud mix because the one with the satin house paint sometimes tends to take over. This is the Metallic Cobalt Blue. And my thought with using these weird colors together was we might get kind of a southwesty vibe. So my paints that were thicker were a little bit more dominant. I like thicker paints for straight pours and cloud mixes generally. I just tend to like the composition better. But because I was trying to kind of get the feel for the cloud mix, I had to go ahead and thin my paints out a little bit so I could see if the cloud mix would react. So one of the things I'm kind of learning now is kind of the importance of not using too much paint, because you need to be able to stretch it out enough to get the right reactions, and trying to get my composition right. So it's been a challenge. So we put we put some of that Flamingo Feather next to the cloud mix because I knew because it was thin it would sort of tint the cloud kind of a peachish color. So I thought that would kind of be cool. Then I put the Hot Tamale and some more Paynes Gray, some more cloud mix, and some more of the Metallic Cobalt Blue. In my mind, these were going to be kind of cool southwesty colors, but you'll see that I end up getting some mud. And like it starts off cool. I think I might be pouring a little too fast and a little too high. So I'm sharing this with you partly just as kind of a journal for myself, so I can refer back to this and figure out like what's going wrong. I think I also so part of what I'm also playing around with, which is why I keep playing around with some records, is getting used to my composition. I obviously do a lot more blooms and stuff. I'm a little rusty with like my straight pours and stuff. Most of my successful cloud pours, I've kind of poured them as a ring initially. and for some reason I get better clouds that way. What I found a little concerning with this one is I immediately start getting all these weird cells, and I think it's the creative inspirations that's causing that. I'm definitely still getting some cloudy cells. You can see them because on those like little fingerlings, you can see how they have cloudy edges. But look at all the weird lacing in that area that kind of turned brown. That's what I think is happening with the creative inspiration. So I think what I need to do, because I've had the best success with the Soho Prussian blue, is I think I need to just stick to Soho Prussian blue and add a couple of like complementary colors into the mix, but use that primarily for a little bit next to the cloud until I see the composition I'm looking for. So at first, like, you see this and you're like, oh, it's kind of cool. It's kind of weird too, though, because the colors are like super warm on one side and then they get kind of cool on the other side. Obviously, I never intended to get some of the color blending that we have. It's weird, right? It's super weird painting. But I wanted to share it with you. For one, it helps me reflect on what I'm doing. And for two, it's just kind of funky. So, you know, I don't know if it's going to live or not. My husband said, oh, that's cool. But I'm like, it's cool, but it's weird, you know? And you can see where my paints were thicker, like with that custom purple and the metallic cobalt blue. The color saturation is better. And in those areas, at least initially, the clouding is more like billowy and structured. So I think the thicker paints definitely made a difference. So I think what I need to do, instead of trying to be so colorful and inventive, is maybe just do a lot with the color in the paints that I know cloud well, and just use a couple of accent colors, and just keep playing with the composition. So yeah, this one's kind of a strange one. So anyway, I decided to voice over this part. I'm looking at it and I'm like, how can I turn this into something? It looks like this painting doesn't even go, like the left side doesn't even seem to go with the right side. But then it's you know, like when something's almost so ugly that you can't look away. That was my initial response to this. And it's not that I think it's ugly, it's just not what I was going for. I thought that the flamingo feather and the hot tamale would be in the center, and that would be super cool. And then the rest would be flowy all around it. And it's just sort of muddy and weird. And so what I think, if I were to do this again, I think I would put the flamingo feather and the hot tamale in the center. And then I think I would just layer the blue and the metallic cobalt blue in the outer layers. That's what I think I would do. But, you know, I'm still no expert at this. So it's cool, it's weird, it's cool. It dried a little funky. The center that kind of looks real ringy right now. I don't know if the surface was just not level, but it dried a little strange. But anyway, I hope that you guys are benefiting from seeing some of my chaos. And I'll bring you in for a close-up and just kind of share my thoughts with you shortly. But it's a strange one, you know? You have to let me know. Would you keep it? Would you scrape it? I mean, at this point, I'll pour over it. This is super weird. So, some of my paints are too thin. This flamingo feather is too thin. And I can't tell if it's from the like the satin house paint or not. I don't think that that's what's causing these cells. I think it's because I mixed some of my other paints too thin instead of the thicker. Like this is nice clouding. I don't mind this some. I don't want it to take over like that. So I don't know if it's because Creative Inspirations is kind of cell reactive. I don't mind this, Just don't particularly love that. So the metallic cobalt blue tends to kind of color these cloudy layers because it's iridescent. The purple is very pronounced because it was very thick. So I don't know, I'm just practicing the composition. That's why I keep messing with the records, but I need to mix some more cloud mix. And you know, these were bloom paints that sat around for a long time, so I thinned them down with some Floetrol. I think I just thinned one of them down too much. But I like the shimmer. I like the, you know, you can see the nice, I think right now I'm challenged with composition. It's like either start with a ring and end with a straight pour, or, because my centers are weird. And I want this, like I wanted the center to be the pigment color. And you can see that that did not pan out. Like I want the center to be this nice colorful pigment, and everything else can be in the rings. But anyway, hopefully you guys are enjoying the experiments. Thanks for watching. Bye.